Hello to all you wisdom walkers out there. I am Jojopahmaria Nsoroma, your guide to this next part in my series this month for April. Um, I had a power outage on Sunday, so my live stream didn't happen then, but it's happening now on Tuesday. So let me get right into it. April is the first of two mineral months in this mineral year of clarity, confidence, and courage, with both the month and the year in mineral. And also last week was a mineral week. So we've just come out of a mineral week. And you can be sure that April is full of opportunities to remember our higher purpose, rooted in the power of love. The religious holidays of Jewish Passover and the Christian Easter celebration occurring this month also highlight the energy of liberation. My theme for April is Core Wound Alchemy, and I'll provide 4 broadcasts and live streams to explain what this is, why it's essential to living your higher purpose, and how to transform your greatest wound into your greatest gift. This video is about becoming an alchemist, so it's part 2 in this series. Now, in case there are some of you who are tuning in for the very first time, let me give you a brief overview of Wisdom Walk to Self-Mastery. It is a personal development resource for your mind, body, and soul. My ministry is any pain that is not transformed will be transferred. So the essential goal of my shows is to support all of you out there learning how to recognize and release any pain that may be blocking your experience of fulfillment in life, or what I like to call having your happy endings in life. Now, every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, I do broadcast live on both Black Hole Radio and this YouTube live stream, unless I'm on hiatus or there's a power outage. And if for some reason you're not able, of course, to do the live stream, the YouTube will be available to you as soon as I finish taping it. I want you, though, to right now just lay or sit back and join me for an exploration of the inner landscape, where you can connect to your soul and discover the true treasure of being human. Now, I always like to start off my shows with first honoring the ancestors. And this week, I definitely wanted to take a moment to honor those ancestors who were able to help us navigate through fundamental change, because truly we are living in a time right now where there is some fundamental change that is going on. Last week, there were pictures of the black holes that get shown. This is the first time the scientists have been able to provide physical evidence, if you will, that Einstein's theory of relativity was right and that black holes do exist. And if you'll notice, if you haven't seen the pictures, you should, because it's very phenomenal, very phenomenal. And it is surrounded by a ring of fire. I call it the eye of God. The Mayan called it the Hanukab. This is what is at the center of our galaxy. And it is also the force of creation, the source of creation. So to me, it is definitely scientific proof that we really do come from a source. The other thing, of course, that's gone on since Sunday is that Notre Dame, the great monument to Christianity in France, and one of the major symbols of that city, did have a horrible fire, and the roof caved in, the tower pushed over. I did hear that some of the stained glass windows did survive, so that would be amazing, because it was a furnace. And so that is like something you can't imagine. Like you can't imagine the pyramids burning down. Yeah. I definitely think emotionally it's kind of reminiscent for people in Paris to what people in New York City, including myself, felt with the World Trade falling. It's like just so unprecedented. It's like you just can't imagine it. So again, fundamental change has really shown up and is showing up for us on so many different levels. So I thought it would be important to just take a moment and call out to our ancestors to help us with that. So I'd like you to just take a moment to think about your ancestors who you felt could be the go-to person for you. Again, they don't have to be blood related, and it may be somebody you never met, but it was somebody that you could go to. You know, people don't realize this, but Jesus is an ancestor. And so think about that go-to person for you. Who was that person that, had a strength that you knew that if you went to them that you would be supported. Um, so go to that person, think about that person and say their name aloud because we are going to call on them for some help that we need right now. For me, it would be my grandmother, Lillian Brown. So I'm calling her out. Creator, Mother, Father, God, Source, all the one, all that is, we thank you. We thank you. We thank you for your blessing and your mercy in our lives and for yet another opportunity to be close to you and to open up to your greater will. And Creator, we are in the process of dealing with fundamental change that is at the root of our beingness. And so we ask and thank you for giving us access to and connecting us with those ancestors who really, really showed us that we can be supported in those times when fundamental change is going on. Creator, this is not an easy walk for any of us, but we know that there is great purpose behind these challenges that we are experiencing. We know there is great purpose by this information about the universe that you are giving us access to. And so we ask and thank you for connecting us with these ancestors so that they give us the clarity, the confidence, and the courage to do the right thing, to do the loving thing, to be full of love in these times of great fundamental change. And so, ancestors, 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 we are calling out to you for your help. Help us, help us, help us. And we thank you, we thank you, we thank you for being such wonderful guides for us. You who can see in all directions at once, you for whom problems here are not problems there in your land. Thank you for being willing to be someones that we can rely upon at this time. And of course, in this very spiritual and deep way. And last but not least, Creator, I want to just thank you, thank you, thank you, and ask you for these blessings in the name of all that is holy. I say amen. Ashe Ahoasa Shinga Bismillah. And so it is. Ashe. Ashe. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. I'm going to jump right into now some of the astrological things that are occurring this week because they really are also very, very interesting. And I'm just looking around because I know I have some notes here. Here they are, okay, that I had just misplaced for a moment. But here's my notes. This week, on the 19th, which is Friday, we will have a full moon in Libra. Now, Friday is also the first day of Passover, and it's also Good Friday in the Christian religion. It's the day that Jesus Christ got crucified. So it's got a really heavy religious and spiritual meaning to it. And so we have this full moon. Now, we also had a full moon in Libra in March. And so what the astrologists are saying is that Remember, think about where you were. Remember and think about where you were in March around the full moon. I remember it was crazy. It was really, really crazy stuff going on. It was really tight. And it was a super moon. So it was so big and brilliant. And this moon, even though it was like in the first quarter around the new moon time, it was very luminous. Yeah, there was a lot of luminosity coming out of this moon. So it's really powerful. So they're like bookends. So whatever started back in March for you should come to a culmination, come to a completion with this full moon this Friday. And then, of course, after that, you'll get to see the results of all of this good fundamental change stuff that is going on. Um, One astrologer that I read, Astro Butterfly, says that this full moon is about magnifying everything connected with love and relationships. But tempers could fly and hot buttons can be pushed. So it's about just having awareness of that it will be really easy for things to kind of get miscommunicated or communicated not a good way. Full moons is why we have the word lunatic. It's like a time when people can go crazy because the gravitational pull of the moon on the water in our bodies is very extreme at the time of a full moon. So that full moon madness, just to be aware of it. And it's also a time when things can come to light, come to fruition. Again, especially because we had full moon in Libra in March, and now we're having it again in April. So just to be aware of that. From Barbara Goldsmith, another astrologer I like, she puts out this question for us for this full moon. She says, where in your life do you need to be flexible and adaptable versus fixed and dogged? Time to go with the flow of the new. Look for balance of give and take in all relationships. It's very, very good advice. And for me personally, it's some very, very good advice. I also had for you the elemental wisdom for this week, which is that it is a water week. And it is because today, it actually starts today on Tuesday, the 6th. And it's all about peacemaking and that peacemaking, especially within, and finding your way to be at peace with yourself within. And so that's the big opportunity. The distractions to that, of course, would have to do with connecting with people, places, and things that don't support you in your peacemaking. Also, holding on to resentments, being judgmental and blaming, any of that kind of energy that really would have you feeling stress. So avoid people, places, and things this week, especially that would bring up stress. Now, if you can't avoid it because maybe it's a job situation, right, that's stressful for you, at least have a consciousness that you don't want to take on whatever pain it is that that person or that situation is transferring. Put up your spiritual guard that says, I'm just going to reflect back whatever comes my way that is not supportive of the truth of who I am. And a lot of times that means you don't even have to say anything, that you just take a stance. Just take a stance. But anyway, remember the focus for this week is definitely on peacemaking and being as peaceful and peace-minded as you can possibly be. So use those meditation videos. Get away to water if you can. Immerse yourself in water because, again, it's a water week and water is a medicine. And, be in a good tub. Take a good tub, a nice 20-minute soak and some salt bath. Oh, it's just wonderful stuff. But do what you need to do to really keep yourself in a peaceful state of mind and a peacefulness in your physical self as well. So that's our elemental wisdom. And next week that will be the 23rd. we will have a Earth Week beginning, and I'll share with you about those opportunities and distractions next week. So for the rest of this video, I am going to do the following. I'm going to give you a brief recap of what I discussed last week, which is about the core wounds, why they exist, about a little bit about the alchemy, because I'll go into more of that tonight, and then the personal challenge I gave you. Then I'll define core wound alchemy for you, what it is, how it works, and the steps involved in it. And then, of course, I will share a personal challenge. So let's step into the overview. Core wounds, the definition. These are unwanted, undeserved, hard to accept, hard to heal, negative, painful situations that occurred in utero, meaning in your mother's uterus, in childhood or early adolescence, usually early adolescence. And they imprint an unconscious negative belief system onto yourself. So, my little list over here, just quickly what some of the core wounds are. Abandonment, physical and emotional, and that includes death or illness of parents or their unavailability because of divorce or active military service or addiction to drugs and alcohol. Betrayal, trust is established, then betrayed, and that includes ambivalence or emotional instability of caretakers, including the mental or physical illness of parents. Abuse, which could be physical, emotional, sexual, ritual. Incest is included in that, and that can be both physical and or psychological. Incest really exists. Confinement, imprisonment, control, lack of limits or too much freedom, pampering, spoiling, low expectations that you received, or overprotection can really result in a core wound. Birth trauma, birth defects, premature birth, serious or extensive illness in childhood, not being wanted, being an unplanned pregnancy, rejection by a parent, including postpartum depression of a mother, and repeated humiliation, criticism, shaming, blaming by parents, caretakers, siblings, or significant others, including the kids in the playground. And then along with that, these core wounds give us these really, really negative belief systems that, again, are usually unconscious, and it takes living our lives to become more conscious about these belief systems, because they show up in patterns in our lives and in our relationships. So there's that nothing I do is good enough. I'm a bad person. I'm an evil person, or I wouldn't have been abused. I'm unworthy. I don't deserve. I'm a failure. I'll never amount to anything. I'm stupid. Others are smarter than me. I have to be smarter than others to be loved. I'm unattracted. I'm weak. I'm sickly. I'm unlikable. And of course, the most popular one, I'm unlovable. The world's not a safe place. If I show up for others, no one shows up for me. Love is too scary. I'm better off alone. My needs don't matter. I have to take care of others. Whatever I do, it won't be enough. When I trust in God or the universe, I get smashed, etc. So that's what the core wounds are, basically. Now, here's the good news after all that, is that they are divinely orchestrated and can be mined for treasure to become our greatest gifts. Yes. See, everyone on the planet has a core wound. Nobody gets into this dimensional realm, into this earth plane, unless they agree to take on a core wound. I said on a radio broadcast, it's like, to go to Disneyland now, you get sent some bracelets that are loaded up digitally with access to, rides or things like that. It's the pre-package that you pay. And they send you this wristband, and this is what'll get you into the park and get you access to stuff. Well, it's like, that's what it's like for us. with our core wounds. It's like we get our core wound before we incarnate, and this is what gets us entrance into the earth plane. Nobody gets in here unless they got that band and it says, yeah, okay, you core wound ready? Okay, good, you can come in. So it's really important for us to understand that, accept that. And last week I did share, and I'll share right now, why core wounds exist. And basically, our essential and highest purpose in life is to evolve our love consciousness. Yes, to become more loving than what we were when we were first born, if you can imagine that, because babies are just nothing but love. They're just nothing but love. But you're actually here to evolve that, to evolve that. So for love to grow in this dimension, we have to experience its opposite. And core wounds being universal, every human has one, from the Queen of England to the homeless person out in the street, doesn't matter. This is the way in which we get to learn how to grow love. Very interesting, because a lot of times, right, for people, depending on the extent of the core wound, it does the opposite. But again, that's not how it's designed. It's designed for us to evolve. And so sometimes, though, we do have to go backwards and identify with the wound to such a degree before we can really break through to what the truth is. No one experiences their wound in the same way, even if it's a similar type of wound, like abandonment. You know, many people experience abandonment, but it's always going to be unique to them. We all have this unique journey. What we do have in common is that the wound, the existence of our wound, and the opportunity to take on learning how to heal it and how to evolve our love consciousness. I also said that, you know, there was a time when, as human beings, we would go to a coliseum and see people fight to the death. Now we just watch football and Game of Thrones. The point is that it is very natural for us to evolve away from fear and violence and into the love of ourselves and others. And so the core wound package, if you will, is designed to support us, to guide us, if you will, into doing that. Because the other thing about the core wound is it gives a framing, for our higher purpose. Yeah, gives a framing for our higher purpose. Now, along with that, I did talk about the gift of alchemy, which is the opportunity to transform that core wound, to transform out of those negative, fear-filled beliefs that run so unconsciously into beliefs of love. And like the physical alchemical process of old, it seems very daunting. It's like, you know, after this happened to me, Jojopah, how could I ever love again or trust again or let go of this anger and rage, you know? Um, but the reality is that you can. You really can. You can learn how to let all of that go and to really actually appreciate what you survived, what you came through, because of how it enables you to live on purpose and to know what your gifts and your talents and your treasure and your genius is. And I'm not talking about dancing and singing. I'm talking about like the genius for being able to be compassionate to someone for what they've gone through, because you can understand it, you can identify it. Yeah, that's a true gift. And this alchemical process requires commitment, it requires a discipline and unwavering faith. Unwavering faith. That's what you need in order to turn the fear of your life into the goal, the love of your life. Now, I also gave a personal challenge last week, which was to take on identifying your core wound so you can work on shifting out of its unconscious belief system, to think about the negative, repetitive patterns in your life. Ask yourself, what do they point to in your childhood or your adolescence, what happened that was so painful that it shut down your heart and or disconnected you from your divine self, your ability to believe in love, that you can have it, you can share it, you can be it. And so that was the personal challenge from last week. Now, moving right along, let me talk a little more about this alchemical process and like what is it that we're really working with? In other words, what is the lead of our core wound? Because I've read you that list of the negativity, but I want to kind of focus it down to these 5 areas that I think are the ones that really, really like hold us down from getting to our happy endings in life, getting to our fulfillment in life. It's these things that I think have us repeating the same situation, even though it may be dressed differently, or it happens in another city, or it happens at a different age that you are, but it'll be the same thing going around and around and around. So here is what I call the lead of our core wounds. And with a focus on these. So the first one is insecurity. Insecurity, despite evidence of the opposite. This is about, that absence of self-worth or valuing yourself or believing that you are enough or that what you do is enough. So this insecurity piece, even the face of the evidence of it. For example, there are people who I've met who are just so beautiful on the outside and and lovely too. Really very, very kind people. But they have this real, eye-catching beauty. And in working with them, I find that they are just full of insecurity, not believing that they are enough, not believing even that they're beautiful. Um, thinking that, oh, that's just what people think, but it's not real. So, we can have something to be proud of, but we may not actually be able to appreciate it. I think that was me too with my piano playing. Like I really um, do play the piano very well, but I've always was comparing myself to, great artists, to genius artists, and then feeling like I wasn't enough. And it took me a long while to say, wait a minute, I do play pretty good. I'm pretty good. I play good for me. And to be able to just feel that it's enough and feel good about it and to value it, to appreciate it. So that insecurity can really, really, cause havoc in our lives. The second one is this belief that the world, the universe is a battleground. And this really is us being entrenched in survival mentality, or what I call 3D mentality. If you can't experience it with your 5 senses, then it's not real. And so then you're stuck with, the temporal experience of things, because you're dealing only with what is presenting itself in a 3 dimensional way. Um, and another example of that is how we will approach like getting a job, even, or getting a home as, okay, there's going to be a fight. I got to fight something. I got to fight somebody, or I got to compete, right? I got to compete instead of being able to operate from a place of, no, the way universe works is there's something out there for you, and it's your job to discover and find out how to be in alignment with it. That you don't have to think that you've got to go out and fight for what you want. That no, it's about opening up and learning how to receive what it is that you need. And so that's a total shift. That's a total mindset shift. But again, core wound led will have you thinking that you always have to be in a battle, or that everything is life and death. And again, it causes a lot of stress, especially especially in the modern world. The third core wound piece of lead is this self sabotage that is so rooted in a fear of failure and a fear of success. Yeah. And, self sabotage is the unraveling of what you have achieved or the unraveling of what you have, been able to get to for yourself. Um, and again, it's that fear of failure, fear of success, which is basically just the fear of change, fear of the unknown. And it seems better, right, to go back to what you know than to continue going forward. So we will sabotage ourselves. And again, that definitely will keep us in an ugly loop of negativity and disappointment. The fourth one is solipsism. And solipsism is basically believing that you, not God, are ultimately responsible for everything that's around you and within your control. And it really does fuel control dramas, whether it is playing poor me or it is being the big, ugly interrogator of everybody and everything that comes around you, not being able to trust. But solipsism is that it's where we actually edge God out and take on the role that like we're a God. And in this modern culture, we kind of are supported in doing that because of how automated things are in our lives. We have so many more conveniences. And so we lose that thought or remembrance, that, God is behind your cell phone. And, like me on Sunday, if I had forgotten, I got reminded that God was behind my live streaming because the power went out, and I couldn't live stream. So again, it's very easy for us to fall into a belief that we are responsible for everybody and everything around us. And again, that will really, really sabotage and keep you in a loop of negativity in ways you can't even imagine. It's really not good. And then, last but not least, and I think probably the biggest lead, the most weighted lead that we can experience from a core wound is this addiction to victim consciousness. Um, this is where we just are always expecting and looking out for a villain in our lives, somebody who we can say treated us bad, treated us wrong, did something to us. And we're not understanding, again, because, the core wound stuff does stay very unconscious. We're not understanding that we're attracting that because we have this belief system going on that says, I'm supposed to be a victim. Like, this is who I am. This is what I know. And so we will attract those people and situations constantly. And this one is really, really, really hard. And as I said, all of the core wound stuff is really hard to heal, hard to break through because, it's so easy to get other people to agree with you that, yeah, that person was really mean to you. They were really bad to you, you know. And for you to miss out taking on responsibility for how your perception and your belief about yourself is what is attracting that to you, and how you can learn to shift that up, to shift that around. But again, those 5 things that I just shared to me are the core wound lead. These are the things that will really weigh you down from evolving into a more loving being and to having your happiness and fulfillment in life. So now that we know we got this lead, how do we change it into the gold? How do we get out of that victim consciousness? So the tools of core wound alchemy, the tools of this process of transforming that lead, that fear-based negative belief system, into the gold, into the love belief system, requires four things that you really have to master. And the first one is acceptance. Acceptance. You have to accept that as a human being, you have a core wound. In other words, you have to know that things that in your life aren't working out or aren't working in your favor are rooted in something from your past, your early past, your early past. Um, Let me say this now too, that your personal core wounds that occurred in your life are also connected to the core wounds of your parents, connected to their parents, connected to their parents. And so, yes, core wounds do emerge out of ancestral wounds. So, when we're talking about healing core wounds, we really are talking about disrupting the hold that the ancestral wounds have on us as well. But again, the first thing you have to do is just be in acceptance. The second tool, and such a powerful one, is forgiveness. And forgiveness is important because this is where you begin to learn how to disassociate, disconnect, if you will, from your identification with the wound. Because all of those five things I talked about is us identifying with the wound. The lead is where you have identified, I'm insecure, you know. I must be God because if there was a God, I wouldn't have suffered the way I did. So I got to be responsible for everything, you know. I am a victim. I'm totally a victim. And even though, again, you're not going to say these things to yourself consciously, but if you look at the patterns in your life, the things that didn't work out, the situations that did not bring you joy and that were repetitive, that you can see a pattern, I guarantee you it will go back to these unconscious belief systems in one way or another. So, again, to break out of that attachment, that identifying with the core wound, we have to practice forgiveness. And forgiveness isn't about letting somebody off the hook. Forgiveness is really about receiving an energy of release from carrying somebody else's pain. Because all core wounds are given. See, you receive a core wound. Yeah. And so you receive somebody else's pain, whether it's an abandonment, betrayal, abuse, all of it. It's coming from somewhere. So you took on pain. And so the forgiveness work is how you release it. And again, it's not something we know how to do. It's something that we have to ask for and believe that we can receive. And I'm not talking from an intellectual perspective. I'm really talking about an experience of no longer feeling attached to that pain. Yeah. And it can happen. I know from self-experience. The third tool, and also very important, all of these are, they're just really important. It's self-mastery. And that is about claiming your purpose, walking your path, being willing to take on responsibility for how you feel, what you believe, what you do to be in this world and to have your happy endings. That again, you're no longer making somebody else responsible. It's also a form of, growing up. It's becoming a real adult, self-mastery. Yeah, you're taking that on. And again, it's a practice, a long-term practice, a lifelong practice. And then last but not least, the other important tool in the alchemical process of changing your greatest wound into your greatest gift is the gift of service, stepping into service. This is about sharing your treasure, sharing your genius, sharing your wisdom, and doing it very consciously, doing service. And whether that is, giving someone some good advice from your own experience, whether that is, say, if you have the gift of writing, or you have the gift of singing, that you're making sure that you're using that. And it's not about having to be a celebrity. It's about using it, because using your gift is going to have an impact on someone. See, you're making someone feel better. You're making someone feel more able to share their gift. Yeah. And that's really, really what it's about. So when I talk about service, just know it's that you are consciously sharing your genius, your gift, what it is that it's part of your purpose. Yeah, it's part of your purpose to do. Now, each of these tools involves behaviors and belief systems and actions and choices. So there are steps involved with these tools, steps that are involved. And so it's not just about, okay, I got to accept, or okay, I got to forgive. No, it's a process that you have to go through to get to that, because otherwise it's just an intellectual exercise. And if you really want to be an alchemist, if you really want to get to the gift in the wound, then you have to take these measured steps. And that's what the alchemists of old did. So they came up with a formula, if you will, of measured steps and practices that they had to do to that lead in order to get it to turn to gold. And whether they were able to turn it into gold or not, after a while, it didn't matter, because doing those steps was actually what getting to the gold was really about. It was that practice of, this commitment and this belief and this willingness to learn, because with each step they took, they were learning something new about the properties of, the minerals, and how the water and the air and the sun, what it did to things. So they were getting like all of this information in doing this work. And so in a way, the real gold for the alchemists was the wisdom and the knowledge that they obtained in their search for turning lead into gold. And that is analogous to what it is about for us. In other words, that when we take on learning how to take these steps to really get the gift in the wound, in taking those steps, we're getting to that gift. Yeah. And it's just really, really, really wonderful that the universe is set up this way for us. Yeah, it's really wonderful. That's what I'm talking to you about has a title. It's called Negative Capability. Negative capability. In other words, when you take on something that is daunting, something that you can't imagine how this will come about, but you take it on anyway, and you put your time and your effort into it, yeah, you will actually get a result that may be even better than what you thought you could get. It's called negative capability. It's really cool. So here are the steps involved with using these tools of acceptance, forgiveness, self-mastery, and service. The first one is you have to have unbridled curiosity. Unbridled curiosity. I mean, no holds barred. You've got to be extremely curious. You got to say, I really want to know. I really, really want to get this figured out. You have to let go of judgment and arrogance, thinking that you can know. And you have to open to learning the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So again, that's a mindset. Curiosity is a mindset. And so stepping into that, and when you find yourself moving out of it, to step back into it, that's the practice. Because, we always want to know, right? We always want to, like, I do know. But the reality is, no, you can't. You can't know how to turn your lead into gold. You've got to open up to learning. The second step is conscious integration. So here's what I mean by that. And let me just jump back to the unbridled curiosity, because when you set out to learn the truth, where you're really opening up, you're going to get there. You're going to get some truth. Um, I had the experience of reconciling with my father, who I did not grow up with. And I knew that he had broken my mother's heart severely. Um, but I knew that there was something that I had to learn, and I had to learn it from him. I didn't know what it was, but I was clear on and this was on my journey to really heal those core wounds, get rid of some of those negative patterns that kept repeating themselves. I knew there was something I had to get. So I had to open myself up to being able to learn. I had to be curious. Like, I had to know. I couldn't go to meet with him and already have judged him and said, there's nothing to learn here. No, I had to open myself up to learning. And so I did. And I did learn a big truth. I learned the truth that my father was an abused child. That would never have occurred to me in a million years. You know why? Because none of us want to think that about a parent, right? We can think about ourselves, but we definitely don't want to think about our parents, right? And so that was a huge truth for me to get a hold of. And so once I heard that truth, I had to go through a process of it integrating into my consciousness, because it meant something about me, right? Because this is my parents, got the same DNA, right? It comes through his DNA. So it requires taking some time apart, getting still so that you can be rewired. That's a conscious integration. In other words, you don't act like it's nothing. You say, oh my God, I just learned something that is going to fundamentally change what I have been believing about myself. And it did. It truly, truly did. After conscious integration, you come to releasing of what supported the lie. So the core wound lead is the lie. That's the lie of who you are. You are identifying with something that is really a reaction to the pain. Okay. So it's the lie. So we want to get to the truth. Within the gold is where the truth is. So to get to that, you have to release what has been supporting the lie. Because, the truth can't show up if it's got all these barriers, if you've got all these barriers around it. So this is about disassociating from people, places, and things that fed you the lie and that kept you in the lie, needing to be in the lie. Just take, for example, believing you're a victim. And that you go from relationship to relationship where you are victimized in some way, shape, and form, whether it's physical or emotional, psychological, whatever. It's that you really feel that this person is doing something bad to you. Okay. So to get to the truth of who you are, which is you're not a victim. You're not a victim. You are a divine being that's come down here with a high purpose to remember the truth of who you are, to make a significant contribution to humanity just by being who you are. That is the truth. And that you have a soul, and you have, it's an infinite capacity for love. Like just love, 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 love. And so being a victim has nothing to do with love, right? So you want to get you want to disassociate yourself from people that have you believing that you're a victim, or situations that have you feeling like you're a victim. Okay. This is a process because, it involves forgiveness, right? You have to let go of carrying somebody's pain. It involves setting boundaries. It involves reforming relationships. Like, you've got to look at yourself and look at your codependency. Look at where you've been giving your power away in order for that person to love you, like you, or feel safe around you, or whatever. So you've got to reform the relationship. And first of all, with yourself. And then you also have to make a commitment to speak your truth. That when something is said to you or done to you that's painful, that you're able to say, ouch, that that doesn't feel good to me, doesn't feel right. And of course, to get away to avoid those situations. So again, this is a process. It's not something that happens overnight. It takes time. It takes years for most of us. It really, really does. Number four, the fourth step would be then to live on a daily basis the commitment to take on full responsibility for shifting out of the fear and into the love through conscious awareness practices. Now, what does that mean? That means that again, you've come through, you've had your curiosity and you got hold of a truth like I did about my father. Then you did a conscious integration. You just let that really settle in and you actually began to understand yourself or to think of yourself in a very different way, right? And then for this new way you're thinking about yourself, anybody, anything, or any situation that can't support that, you have to let it go. You have to let it go. You have to resolve it or you have to reform it. But in other words, you can't continue to stay in the same environment that supported you in the lie. So once you've cleared that out, you kind of now have this understanding of, okay, this is more of the truth of who I am. Now you're ready to live that truth. You're ready to live that truth. And that means that you don't get sucked back into the lie. Yeah. So when the temptation shows up, you're willing to say, no, that is not going to support the truth of who I am. This living the commitment also is about, and this is what I mean by conscious awareness, where you are really staying very conscious, as conscious as you can possibly be, about what you're feeling and thinking during the day. Because again, there's so much unconscious stuff that can go on, and unless we bring it into the light, we can't shift out of a negativity. Or if it's happy stuff going on, good stuff, right? We want to support that, right? We want to keep pushing it up. So it is important to take time. And with my clients, I tell them in the morning or at night to ask yourself like these three simple questions. First one is, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Are you thinking something negative or are you thinking something positive? The second one is, what are you feeling? What are you feeling? Yeah. Are you feeling good? Are you feeling tired? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling angry? Like, what's going on? What are you feeling? And then the third one is, what are you believing about yourself? What are you believing about yourself? Are you loving yourself? Are you judging yourself? What's going on? And so this is a way to check in because, again, those core wound, let it, negative thoughts, they will keep trying to rule. They'll keep trying to be in charge. And so the only way that you can keep them in their place is to take time to really be conscious of what is going on for me right now. And especially, if you were like me in the field of human services where your focus is always on someone else, you really, really have to make sure you carve out and set aside a time when you are going to do your inner work, because that's what this is. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I believing? That's the inner work that we have to do. And if you come across a negativity, say something you're thinking, you want to work on shifting that right away. Right away, you want to work on shifting it. And then the fifth step involved with these alchemical tools of acceptance, forgiveness, self-mastery, and service is about connecting with your higher purpose to allow yourself to experience your value. It's about letting go of your survival mentality, your 3D attachment to selffully share your gifts, your genius in the world. And so the work here is, in order to really serve from a self-full place, meaning it ain't about I got to sacrifice who I am or what I'm doing or what I have in order to be of service. No, I've got to put my oxygen mask on first before I can help anybody else. In other words, this isn't about turning into a martyr or becoming codependent in order to serve. No, those again, that's that core wound lead trying to come in and take over. No, self-full service is where you have taken care of yourself. You are feeling good about yourself. You're feeling pumped. You're feeling positive. You're feeling strong physically, mentally, emotionally. And you say, I want to share something with someone else. Yeah. I want to share some gifts. I want to share some talents. I want to share some genius. I want to share some wisdom, you know, so that you're coming from a place of fullness, not, oh, let me go take care of somebody so I can feel better about myself. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Okay. Because that's codependency. That's codependency, and it doesn't ever end well. So, to get to that service piece, you've got to be connected with your higher purpose. You've got to be connected with the truth of who you are. You've got to be connected to your soul. You've got to be connected to your greater order and direction, to what it is that you really know is the truth of why you exist, right? So that you avoid doing that martyr stuff, because that's just not, ain't going to work, not going to work. So, having said all of that, and I know it was a lot, but you can watch this video more than once if you need to. And again, next week I'll be doing more. But at least you got kind of the basis of here's the lead, here are the tools, and here's what's involved with those tools. Because again, I don't want you to ever think that healing from your core wound, changing the lead of it into the gold, is an overnight experience or a one-time session experience. No, 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 no. This is life work. This is life work. I mean, the work I did on myself 20 years ago was one phase and one chunk of it. It was a big chunk. It was a beginning chunk. But here, 20 years later, I'm doing work. I'm continuing using those same tools, you know, but it's in a way where it's easier for me to use them. I'm more familiar with them. The challenges get a little bigger, right? Because I'm more able to deal with the bigger challenges. I'm able to learn some more truths that I probably couldn't have handled 20 years ago. You know, so it's that kind of a thing. It's this lifelong process. But you do, in the process, back to negative capability, by making that commitment, going into that discipline of practice, of higher consciousness thinking, you will be more able to experience your fulfillment in life, your happy endings. Yeah. And that, of course, gives you encouragement, because when one really good thing happens and you start to believe, oh, yeah, maybe this could happen too, you know, and that is really the gold. That's really what I mean by the gold, that a treasure in the womb. So here's a personal challenge for this week, and this is a personal faith gesture that I'm suggesting that you make. So after you've done that work to identify the core wound, or as much of it as you can, you know, or what you think it may be, like I said, you're looking for those repetitive negative patterns in your life where you're always maybe getting abandoned or betrayed, or, you know, you're victimized all the time, or always having a victim experience. That is definitely pointing back to the core wound. So once you have that, the next thing I want you to do is to take on these first steps of acceptance and forgiveness. And so this faith gesture is a way to kind of kickstart, if you will, or jumpstart the process that I was just talking about of using those tools and taking those steps. This is letting the universe know that you're willing, that you're ready to take on getting the gift in the wound. Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is draw a picture or make a collage, you know, from magazine pictures, or find items, physical items that represent your core wound. Okay, so what we're doing is we're putting it into a more tangible form for you, more tangible, more 3D. Then you're going to take and sit it on your altar overnight. Now, if you don't have an altar, I suggest an ancestor altar. Very simple. You get a red piece of cloth and a red candle. And if you have a picture of an ancestor, you can put that on there, or maybe an item that belonged to one of your ancestors, that's well too. But that's very simply. And so you're going to take that picture or those items and you're going to put them right there on that altar. That's night one. This is a 3-night process. Now, the next morning, what you're going to do is you're going to write forgiveness letters to everybody involved in your core wound. Yeah. Now, this forgiveness isn't about letting anybody off the hook, like I said, but it is saying, I forgive you for. And of course, I would add in there a prayer to God. God, enable me to forgive this person, to let go of carrying this person's pain, you know. So then you're going to do that letter. And of course, in the letter, of course, ask for forgiveness for yourself. Because especially when we're children and something bad and negative happens, we blame ourselves. We blame ourselves. So we want to break out of that as well. So then you're going to take that letter and you're going to put that on to the altar. Yeah. Excellent. That's going to be the night 2. Now, the next day, you're going to get some red cloth and bundle up the pictures and the letter. Put them into a bundle. Put them together. And then you're going to put that bundle on your altar that night. Now, do you have to have red? No, you don't have to have red. It helps just because it's a color for the ancestors. So we're calling in the ancestors to help us with this, to help us jumpstart healing out of that core wound. But if you don't have red, that's okay. Use what you have. White, blue, black, it doesn't matter. Your intention is, right, that you want to really send a message to the universe, to your God, that you are ready to take on getting out of the repetitive cycle of pain that you have been living in. That's the most important thing. So, got that on the altar. This is night 3. So the next day is when you're going to take that bundle and you're going to burn it. Now, if you don't have access to a fireplace or a friend's fireplace or a hibachi grill that you can put outside on a porch or in a backyard, you know, whatever, then you can take and put this bundle into a body of water because it is a water week. And so it needs to be flowing water. So it needs to be like a lake or the ocean, ideally. And what you're doing when you do this is you are, again, you know, offering up your core wound to be healed. And so, of course, you do all of that in a very sacred way, which just means that before you burn your bundle or put it in water, that you do a prayer and you ask for help from God and your ancestors. And that when you've done disposing of your bundle, that you say a thank you to your God and to your ancestors. So, and again, this will definitely jumpstart that alchemical process that you definitely want. So that brings me to the conclusion. Let me just find my other little cheat sheet here. Okay. That brings me to the conclusion of this video. And I want to just remind you that this work is so important, but it also, you know, requires a lot of patience and a lot of openness to learning. So be gentle with yourselves in doing this work, especially the ritual, the personal ritual that I gave you. Just be gentle with yourself and know that your ability to heal, you were born with that. So just like you're born with the core wound, You come in with the core wound. You also come in with the ability, the capacity to heal it. It's been divinely orchestrated. So just know that as you are taking on this work. I want to close this out by again just thanking all of the people who support my work so beautifully, especially Miss Sarah is my number one fan. To all the people who have wisdom walked with me, and you know who you are, to my family and my spiritual kin, to my transformational leadership colleagues, and my medicine brothers and sisters all around the world. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I couldn't do this work without you. And to those of you who may be watching one of my videos for the first time, thank you so much for your watching and supporting of my channel. Now, next video, which I will live stream on Sunday, as long as I don't have a power outage, I will focus on our next step around Core Wound Alchemy, where we will be discussing the treasure. Like, what is the treasure? What do we really mean by that? I also have a Wisdom Walk radio page on Facebook because I do a blog talk on this. So check it out. And anytime that you want to just get a little more information, you'll easily find it there. And last but not least, I want to thank my God, my ancestors, my spirit guides, my loving entities, everything that walks with me, keeps my head to the sky, my feet to the ground, and my heart open to do this important work with and for all of you. Have a wonderful, wonderful water week. If you do your ritual blessings on that, may you release that which no longer serves you. And most importantly, please remember that you are not disposable. You are divine. Thank you.